Willie Taggart out after 21 games. Who's next in Tallahassee? Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love each and every day with the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the nation. Please like, comment, share the videos, and subscribe. Got Big Game James Coleman on the line from Fifth Quarter College Football. Please join him on his podcast as well, Sports Den Live. James, how you doing today, man?
Doing good. I'm actually coming up your way. Well, I guess I don't know how far Connecticut is from Boston, but I'll be there. I'm not looking forward to it because it's supposed to be snowing.
Yeah, we're about 2 hours away, and 60 degrees left us a couple days ago, and now it's more like 45 or 50, and at night it's going to be – what time's the game?
The game is at noon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's supposed to be the coldest day we've had. Friday and Saturday, it's supposed to dip down. So, yeah, look out. Your body temperature is going to get a bit of a shock. So we got Florida State taking on Boston College. Of course, that's the byline that is off to the side as the sidebar. It's all about Willie Taggart and the aftermath concerning his firing, the buyout, and, of course, who's going to replace him long term. James, so when you heard the news, what was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction was, you saw it coming. I really thought they would have gave him to the end of the year. I thought 6-6 going to a bowl would have probably been enough. Obviously, he needed to beat Miami. 4-5 in the last 5 games is what a lot of people said. I thought 3-5 would have been good enough. But you had been hearing whispers since Wake Forest. I had reported that there was a meeting with Jimmy Sexton at 3 p.m. that Sunday after Wake Forest, and I thought that was going to be the day that they fired Willie Taggart. But then again, just logic and cooler heads kind of came in, and I was thinking like maybe they won't do this because you don't have a real replacement. Maybe Bob Stoops. If you could get Bob Stoops, then that's fine. But it's got to be somebody who's retired, because no coach in their right mind that you're going to go after, which would be a winning coach, would leave in the middle of a winning season to come to FSU. That's kind of bad karma in of itself. But like when you think about it, James Franklin, somebody like that, he's actually in shot for possible playoff contention if his team plays well enough. So why would he leave there to come to FSU when it's a complete disarray? So move forward. You start hearing a lot of the rumors. If FSU doesn't win this, if this doesn't happen, blah, blah, blah. And then it finally the trigger got pulled. We're told that they fired Willie on Sunday. That could be true. They probably did meet. And people might have said he might have been fired not too long after the Miami game. And he knew that Saturday night. And that's the reason why you started hearing a lot of the Bob Stoops rumors and things come into play. But right now, that situation is about the most fluid situation that I've seen or heard in terms of rumors and what are facts. In my short time covering FSU as I guess, unofficial beat writer or whatever the hell you want to call me, it seems like I only come around when there's coaching searches. And boy, I thought the Jimbo should I stay, should I go thing was bad. This Bob Stoops thing is looking real reckless right now.
So let's stay on Willie Taggart for a second. Do you think it just simply came down to wins and losses, or was there more of a feel of this is not headed in the right direction, it's not getting better, it's not improving? Obviously, if they somehow would have beaten Miami, it's not a good look to fire a coach right after you win the biggest game on your schedule. So that kind of fell into their laps. But was it a strictly, well, obviously they didn't get him to the point where he was able to complete the season. Like you said, I thought a 6-6 finish was going to ride him out to put him on the hot seat for 2020 and put his head on the chopping block to say, okay, pull through with 8-4, 9-3 this year, or you're gone. But it obviously didn't turn out that way. And the boosters stepping up and the alumni and all the backers with $17+ million didn't hurt the cause.
Yeah, and even that, just the misinformation is FSU is trying to act like a big boy program, and they should be. But they didn't do it in a manner in which was professional. And what I mean is, or professional or smart. You don't fire a coach right now unless you know for, like, if they fired him, then we should have. And what the rumor is that but I don't know if it's going to happen now. We should have a coach no later than Thursday this week. If you didn't, all you did was sit there and allow your recruiting class, which is pretty good, all things considered, a lot of guys who bought into what Willie Taggart was preaching. All you're doing right now is allow 4 weeks for rivals and other programs to come in and poach at your kids while you have nobody in place to give them hope. Like right now, you have coaches like Odell Higgins, Dante Pilverton, Telly Lockett. These guys are going out and they're doing their best. But these are guys who are telling kids, like, hey, Florida State's Florida State. And they may not be coaching these kids. They've developed a relationship with these kids. These kids have legitimate answers. You want to know who your position coach is going to be. So to answer your question it was about wins and losses, because it's always about wins and losses. And Tag has been being fired since week 1, losing to Virginia Tech. He's been being critiqued since the spring when they played music. He knows that he knows that he had to win out the gate, and he didn't. Take that for what it is. We could say it was race. We could say it wasn't race. We could say whatever it is. But bottom line is, he knows when he took over, anybody who takes over a program like Florida State, it's not acceptable to lose. And the problem is he took over an FSU program that did not fire a coach. He took over an FSU program that a coach used it as leverage. And that's the key thing, is leverage. And Tag had none, and they felt like they ran out. And the bigger thing about football, which is part of the reason why you see this stuff is going to happen in 2021, where players can use their likeness and stuff like that. Football is about wins and losses because it's about money. And it wasn't about recruiting classes, because our recruiting class was good and it was getting strong, and we actually lost recruits and we'll lose more as the days go on. It was about booster donations, ticket sales. It's about money. And which is the most American thing. We're not making money. We're losing it, and we're losing it because of you. So we had to go find somebody. They had to go make a decision because they want to make more money.
So you started to touch upon the hot button issue, so we're going to press it real hard here, because I've heard it all over the place, and it's been coming for a number of weeks. In that, obviously, Florida State decided to hire a Black or African American head coach, so racism didn't play into the initial decision. A number of people, as you alluded to, a lot of people have commented to me that he was let go earlier than a white coach would have been. My response to that is typically that I can't get into the hearts and minds of people, so I'm not going to judge people on racism unless there's something of substance to be able to compare it to. Do you think there's any relevance or any validity there?
Yes, but that's not the only reason he was fired. Let's be clear on that. If race weren't an issue, like we would have had black quarterbacks. We would have more than 17 African American coaches in Division I for a sport that's about 70% African American. Probably more with the schools that win. But he was fired because he had a losing record. Let's be clear on that. And he was fired because of the perception. Now I think a lot of it alludes to the perception was because of who he was, but it doesn't matter. There was a lack of organization. There was multiple times when there's 10 people on the field. There was a lot of penalties. We were very undisciplined. There was a lack of a connection from the athlete to be able to do what it is. Now, some of that stuff happened with Jimbo, but it was exacerbated under Tag. And I think, but I think the problem is when you fire a guy and you set this precedent, and A.D. Coburn said a lot, the standard is championships and winning championships. So now the standard at Florida State is to fire. If you're not competing for championships when we haven't been competing for championships since 2014. Now the standard is 21 games. That is unprecedented. Now, if every school that was a what you call a blue blood held this standard, Jeremy Pruitt should be getting just as much heat right now because they look abysmal as well at Tennessee, but he's not. We have a strong belief that Jeremy Pruitt will get a year 3. Scott Frost, while Nebraska hasn't won a championship recently, Scott Frost is a guy who was 4-8. They were 4-8 the year before. There hasn't been very much improvement, but he'll probably get a chance to go 6-6 this year, go to a bowl game. Chip Kelly, UCLA went to a bowl game before Chip Kelly got there. They've looked progressively worse, and there is no fire Chip Kelly. Now, a lot of us can say the fan bases don't care as much, but Nebraska paid $6 million. They didn't pay $6 million to get a 4-8 coach. They paid and bad recruiting. So a lot of it just has to do with those things. And also, we know it's going to get clicks. I try to stay away from a lot of that stuff. But I do know my mother raised me in the matter of if I do anything, I got to be 2 to 3 times better than most people. And I think if everybody took that mentality, white, black, or whatever, they'd probably be better off in life. And I kind of just let the chips fall where they may. But yeah, I can see where people have that perception. But if Tag were 13-8, like Dabo was in his first 21 games, Tag wouldn't be fired.
James Coleman from Fifth Quarter College Football. Also catch him on his podcast, Sports Den Live. All right. In terms of the candidates, when you say that there's going to be a head coach, or based on what you're hearing, there's going to be a head coach named by Thursday, that speaks to a coach who doesn't currently have a job. And we know that Bob Stoops has visited Tallahassee in the last couple of days. So who in the world else would it be? Because Mark Stoops at Kentucky, for example, isn't going to leave that good of a job mid-season, leave the job. That just doesn't happen. Therefore, the coach would have to be unemployed at this point.
Right. And there's only so many that are qualified to be able to do that. And again, that's Bob Stoops, and there's a lot of smoke for that. And there's a lot of people who believe that Big Game Bob is going to be the guy, and he's going to keep retaining Browse, and that's the stuff that I was being told by my sources. But what I do know about these coaching searches is this stuff is fluid, and until the ink is dry, is nothing. And right now, Bob has all the leverage based upon the way that Florida State dealt with this. Florida State does not have a coach. They're losing recruits by the hours. I mean, by the minutes. The recruits are being poached. Their best players are going to rivals right now. So it's like you're lined up to be, honestly, this decision, if not handled correctly, and it's not Bob Stoops, is looking to make FSU actually worse than what you could have done if you would have just kept Willie Taggart. Because you're looking at, like, a lot of these guys are committing early, and there aren't very many good prospects left after early signing day. So now you're looking at possibly not only going, we got 4 games, let's say 4-8 for the first, and having 2 consecutive years where you miss, but now you're looking at having a below top 25 recruiting class, which does not help you get any better because you need players. So you have to develop, and you have to scheme, you have to coach guys up a lot harder, which I don't think it's necessarily that the guys aren't coaching hard. I think there's a dearth in talent. But when I look at the list that everybody's talking about, guys like PJ Fleck, he just re-signed or re-upped his contract. Matt Campbell has a $15 million buyout. Mike Norvell, I don't know what he is. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know if he has he's got dead babies in his backyard or something, because the last 3 years when there's been coaching searches, he's never been a top candidate. Even Arkansas, where he's from, they didn't go out and get him. They went out and got somebody else. I think he's a damn good coach, but there's some reason why nobody's pulled him out of Memphis, and his buyout and what he's getting paid isn't bad. Me, who I would want, and if they would have waited to the bye week to fire him, I'd have went and dropped $6 million on Chris Peterson. That almost doubles what he makes at Washington, and bring his ass across the country, because that man can flat out coach. And he's pretty decent at recruiting. But you get that, or If all else fails, there is a model that Clemson has used and that LSU is currently using with the coach who has a similar name. We call him Odell, but we can call him Coach O as well. You give Odell $3.5 to $4 million to be the CEO of your program, and you put whatever top coordinators around to support him. It's all Odell's job is to do is to recruit and maybe coach D-line if he wants to, but that's his focus. And he lets the offensive coordinator be the head coach of his offense, the defensive coordinator be the head coach of his defense, and then you bring them together and you put out a product. Everybody was ready to fire Coach O. They thought he was a stopgap. There's no way they can get rid of that guy now. And they've got some of the best minds on offense over there with two co-offensive coordinators, and they've got a defensive coordinator who's one of the best in the nation, and they're all being paid handsomely.
So it's nice to hear that there's some kind of confirmation or verification of my evaluation of coaches, because I was asked a number of times during a call-in show, who would I run after? And I said, the best coach in America, not named Dabo, Urban, or Nick, is Chris Peterson at Washington. So run after him. He's exceptional. All right, we got James Coleman on the line talking Florida State football. You can catch James on Fifth Quarter College Football and also his podcast, Sports Den Live. So you're a player who can relate to the players, obviously, because you've been through it. So we talk about that angle a lot, but you played under the model of consistency and stability in Bobby Bowden and his staff. What do you think goes on in the locker room in regards to these kids having any kind of incentive or motivation going forward? And how do they? I think we've seen examples in the past where this kind of thing has galvanized the team, brought them together, and they fought for each other, and then other situations in which they kind of fall apart.
Well, man, I hope they do that, man. Right now, you got Odell, who's a very good guy. Everybody loves Odell. Hopefully, he can let them understand what it's like to be in a bowl game, because a lot of these guys have only went to crappy bowl games, and or don't really understand what it's like. They've got, they got to play for positions next year. Whoever the coach is going to be, they're going to look at the film and they're going to evaluate the guys based upon what they see and what they have right now. So really, this is a job interview. Not like to quote, the art of war. You cut off the general's head, and all the soldiers below fall into place. So that's kind of what they got to look at. That's what they got to be able to do. And if not, then everything will handle itself accordingly. But I believe that, you should see. I also believe that, there's a lot of ruffled feathers about Kendall Browse and everything like this. Now you have no excuses. You can't say anybody was hindering your play calling, because Odell don't care. Odell wants points. So now you can run your offense in the manner in which you believe it should run. So I expect to see 35 points this weekend on Boston College, if not more.
And get a head coach who takes pride in an offensive line and wants to recruit offensive linemen and coach them up. My goodness. Did you see the same thing that I saw, that was the biggest difference between those two teams? Obviously, Miami's offensive line is not that good either. But in talking about the Miami defensive line dominating Florida State up front, that was the biggest factor in that game?
To be honest with you, I saw ineptitude in offensive play calling and offensive execution. When you have the quick game, and a lot of people took pictures of the still shot of like three defenders closing in on Hornibrook and the line on the ground. That's called quick game. You have less than 3 seconds to get rid of the ball. When they chop, it's literally catch and release. You should know where you're going. You don't get a pat. You don't get 5 seconds. And I think that's the biggest problem, whereas Miami's guys understood what was being called, and they did a better job of executing. Again, it's not that their O-line is much better than ours and our O-line is any good. It's just they look worse when you don't execute.
James Coleman from Fifth Quarter College Football, Sports Den Live. Please join him right there. He played the game. He loved the game before he played it, in regards to being a big fan of college football. And again, Florida State 2002 to 2005, and now he covers it like the rest of us. James, we appreciate you stopping by, man.
All right, man. Appreciate it.